Coming up on Chasing the Natty, we, the CFF team here at Campus of Canton, spend a ton of time fine-tuning our rankings for you all, but no matter how much blood, sweat, and research we put in, there are just some guys that we have a hard time nailing down exactly where to put them in our rankings. Today, we'll be looking at 10 such players and maybe, hopefully, answer some of our questions around them and maybe figure out where we can settle them in our rankings. We have all of that and more coming right after this.
Picks his way to the right and is tripped up, reaching for the end zone. Touchdown. What a start.
Give it to Reed, and there he goes. Nobody's going to catch him. Touchdown.
It's caught. Jeremiah Smith. Touchdown, Ohio State. The legend grows.
This is Chasing the Natty, a college fantasy football podcast. All right, welcome in everyone. This is Jared Palmgren, host of the Chasing the Natty podcast. I hope you guys are having a wonderful ride to your work on this Monday morning. We are the College Fantasy Football Podcast on the Campus of Canton Podcast Network. You can find us on all of your podcast feeds and on YouTube every Monday morning during the off season at 6 a.m. sharp. If you want to support the great work we do here, head on over to campusofcanton.com and subscribe there with any of our phenomenal tiers. We have content ranging on all sorts of college football games, whether that's CFF, Devy, C2C, College IDP, College DFS, Underdog Best Ball, Tadpole Bowl. If you play, then we've got content, whether that's tools, rankings, pretty much everything you need to succeed. In fact, right now, if you want to support the show even further, make sure when you sign up for one of our yearly memberships, you use that promo code NATTY, N-A-T-T-Y, to get 10% off of your yearly membership. Again, that is promo code NATTY, N-A-T-T-Y. You can't do that, totally fine. You can just show us some love by leaving a like, a comment down below, subscribe on the YouTube side of things. And on the podcast side of things, just leave a 5-star review. Make sure you're following the show. Not only does that show us support, but also the entire game of college fantasy football in general, a ton of support. If you have any questions or want to get in touch for whatever reason, you can find me and the show on Twitter. I'm at CFF_Jared, and the show is at Chasing the Natty. And the handsome fellow joining me once again, first time in a long time, I have to say, though, is Mr. Chris K, at Realist Chris K on Twitter. Welcome back to the show, Chris.
Yeah, your shows run a tad long, and when you have kids, that time is precious, and you don't necessarily have it available. So, yeah, it's been a while, but glad we could find some time. Schedules have linked up a little bit better recently, and I will say you lost a little bit of a win there. So you needed a breath there with the list of all the things Campus of Canton does. That's a good sign. That's a great thing. We should add more things. Adding the Tadpole Bowl is awesome, and just kind of shows you. I feel like that, like not C2C necessarily, but like the industry is growing and like the sport and popularity is growing, which is awesome.
That is a great way to turn that around. It had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that I had a bunch of spit in my mouth forming up, and I just had to take care of that in the middle of my monologue to start off there. So we'll pretend that that's exactly what was happening there. Yeah, like you said, Chris, we got a ton of great things going on. The Tadpole Bowl is in full swing. We're getting ready for our live Atlanta draft for that at the end of this month, which, by the way, we do have a few spots still open for that. And so if you are in the Atlanta area and you are interested in participating in the live draft for the Tadpole Bowl, it is taking place on June 28th. It is over in, I think, Sandy Springs. And so if you are interested in that, reach out to me or Chris on Twitter. We'll get you guys hooked up. We'll make sure that you're able to attend that. And then the other exciting thing that we have going on right now is the CFF guide. That is now available for pre-order. If you pre-order, you can get 25% off of the $20 price tag. So you can get it for $15 right now if you go ahead and pre-order it. And as it currently stands, it's currently the Chris K CFF guide right now, because Chris, you have been banging out some epic
I'm on
team
leave,
profiles.
Man. I'm on leave, so I have the time to do it, and I saw what was coming with the baby coming, so I was cranking stuff out, not sure of how much I could get done after the fact. So yeah, I'm itching. I'm messaging you on the side like, hey, let's open up more stuff because I'm tired of writing about teams. So yeah, it should be fun. It should be good. If you like my writing, you'll love this guide.
Don't worry, Kay. We got plenty more for you to write here in the next coming week and everything. We're getting Ethan Sowers' CFF rankings onto the site here soon. Make sure you go check out our rankings on the site over at campusofcanton.com. Both Chris K and I have our full rankings up there. I have currently, I was just bragging / crying about this to K ahead of the show. I have currently ranked 106 quarterbacks, 121 running backs, and 139 wide receivers that I've ranked out. And then tight end,
it's an insane amount, man.
67.
Some of these guys I'm looking at, I'm like, you didn't need to do that. Like,
I probably didn't.
You could have saved the typing on some of these guys.
Yeah, you're right. But like a thing I changed about my rankings this year is that this year I'm trying to go less on vibes and more of like having some actual numbers to back up like where I'm ranking guys. Even if, again, there's still some subjectivity in there, right? Like there are some numbers that I fudge with, projections and stuff like that. If I see a guy that has like 12% touchdown rate, like I'm not gonna keep that. That just doesn't happen year to year, right? There are certain, like I have a confidence rating in here that's purely subjective that just kind of takes off a certain percentage whenever I feel like I'm like, I'm not sure I feel 100% confident in that projection, so I'll probably knock it down just a little bit. Like there's still some stuff like that, but at least I can point to it and say like I give them this confidence discount. I gave them this amount of volume. This is what they've done the last 2 years. This is what the system's done the last 2 years. And it's definitely helped me out a ton. It's made adding guys a lot easier. And that's why I have so many guys this year. Because now I see a guy, I'm like, hey, I'm kind of interested to see how they project out. I project them out, and then I just add them to the rankings. Because I've already done the work. Might as well add them to the rankings.
Yeah, I mean, it should make things easy on ranking these players. You should have no questions. This topic should be irrelevant to you.
Exactly, and that is a great segue into today's topic, and that is that despite me adding myself a whole system here to figure out where to put players and everything, when all else fails, there's still some guys that feel really, really hard to project. And so we got a list of 10 players here today. We're going to go back and forth on this. And yeah, I say we just go ahead and hop right on into it. You ready, Kay?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Throw up the graphic here. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see the graphic there. It's just a picture of the player. And then where I have them ranked, where Chris has them ranked, and I also put their ADP rank in here just to kind of see, are K and I in line with where they're being taken in drafts? Are we way off? It's just an interesting kind of point of reference, right? Because ADP is like the industry's, I guess, consensus, right? Not necessarily experts, but just everybody drafting as best we can, right? So the first guy we got up here is CJ Carr. I have him ranked as QB 77. This is, by the way, the quarterback out of Notre Dame, in case anybody didn't know. Kay, you have him ranked as QB 57. ADP has him going in around the 20th round as QB 53. So ADP is higher on him than both of us. And my hesitancy or just confusion on what to do with Carr here relies heavily on the fact that I look at the last few quarterbacks that Mike Denbrock's had to work with, right? Riley Leonard, Jaden Daniels, and Desmond Ridder. All great quarterbacks, all elite dual threat guys. Carr is not a statue by any means, right? But when you look at his high school production, when you look at a lot of the scouting reports on him, they don't really describe him in the same mold as like guys like Ridder, Daniels, and Leonard, right? He can escape the pocket, but he's not a guy that's gonna, you're not giving designed runs to, at least not in any kind of high volume-esque, right? But if I use the volume and efficiency from those last three guys, right, then yeah, Carr is going to be projected into a top 10 quarterback pretty easily for CFF because that's just what Mike Denbrock's done with dual threat quarterbacks. But I just don't trust that that's what they're going to do with Carr. But then that begs the question, what are they going to do with Carr? And I didn't really know what else to do outside of me and going looking at Marcus Freeman's history back before he brought Mike Denbrock in with guys like Drew Pine. And I forget the guy they had before that.
Sam Hartman, Denbrock?
Yes.
Sam Hartman was...
No, Sam Hartman was a Freeman, not Denbrock.
Okay, so that's the Jaden Daniels year for Denbrock.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
So,
I was just saying, because that's a really good comparison. If we could get that feels as decent of a comparison as we could get.
And that is one of the reference points that I had when it came to CJ Carr, and that got him out to roughly, again, QB 77 here for me. About 290 passing attempts, 40 rushes. So, and the other hard part is that Carr hasn't done anything in college yet, right? So there's no stats really based on what he himself can do.
Yeah, he could just stink, right? Like in theory. This is the hard part with projections is like, what do you do when a guy doesn't fit the mold specifically at quarterback? Because there's such a difference between running quarterbacks and guys that can throw the football and don't run. Hartman's a tough comparison as much as we would think that it was good because they just blow so many teams out that
Mm-hmm.
he was throwing 20 times a game, like 17 times against Tennessee State, 24 against NC State. Like, so I feel like that's like the bare minimum of what you give him.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like it's hard to look at last year to this year and say it's going to be the same in terms of game script and style because last year's schedule was awful. This year's schedule actually has some competitive names on it. Ethan and I talked about it on Balling with My Bestie. Like this schedule is actually formidable, especially with a quarterback that's unproven. I don't know how much I'm buying people saying that like Notre Dame will sit players and do things like that to prepare for the playoff and a potential 15 game schedule because they got A&M, they got Miami, they got Boise State, they have Arkansas on the road. Not that that's some special matchup, but like it's something. It's not like
Any
no offense to Navy and Army, but it's not Navy and Army where they're just blowing them out by the third quarter.
Let's be real. Any Power Four school on the road, especially when you have to travel multiple states like that, it's going to be hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a complete pushover. So
Yeah.
that makes it interesting too. So I think we briefly discussed this like a week ago about like, hey, what should I do here? And I'm like, I think you make Notre Dame more pass friendly.
Mm-hmm.
I think you run the ball with the running backs more, and Carr just doesn't run it anywhere near obviously as much as like Leonard and
Yep.
obviously Daniels types. I don't know where that puts you. I know just listening to the Fantasy Points podcast with Mike and Josh, Eric and Zach, and soon to be Baconfield, aka Elliot.
Yep.
They've talked about, but Denbrock's quarterbacks have never finished below QB 52. Obviously, those are mostly running quarterbacks. So that's kind of where I got my 57 ranking is kind of that. Well, what's the worst Denbrock's done? I still believe in the fact that like if he was winning the job, he's got a plethora of options to throw to. He's just going
Mm-hmm.
to get there a little bit differently than other Notre Dame quarterbacks.
So I will say this. So the 290 pass attempt number was heavily based on what Drew Pine and Sam Hartman did when they started for Notre Dame a couple years ago. And I just looked and I remember that both Riley Leonard and Jaden Daniels over the last 2 years have actually averaged for about 320 pass attempts in their 2 years starting over 12 games. So I actually just bumped his projection up a little bit. I am going to take that number. And that did bump him up to about QB 49 for me, which that feels a bit more right.
It's a little, even then it's still hard because maybe they throw it more than past numbers because their efficiency isn't comparable, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
he's not going to be as efficient, CJ Carr is, as Jaden Daniels when he
Oh, God,
threw like
no.
for 11 yards per attempt, right? So that's going to create more plays, more attempts, and just which is fine for us. We don't care about completion percentage and stuff like that. Just the volume is good. So
No,
this is definitely a tough one. This is a good one to start with
I,
overall.
so I'll tell you, Kay, I took what Hartman and Pine did, and they averaged for about 8.4 yards per attempt. And that's what I plugged in for CJ Carr as well. And so that gets him to about 2688 passing yards. Does that seem
Honestly,
reasonable?
that feels honestly kind of low.
You think
But
that's
I mean,
low?
we haven't seen Carr. We haven't seen
Yeah.
Carr, so he could easily be worse than that. It wouldn't shock me at all if he's just a very average quarterback, but more game manager. In that case, 2,700 passing yards is kind of a steep number. So
You gotta remember this is over 12 games, right? Because like
right,
Leonard got to like 2,800 and he played 16 games last year.
yeah.
Um,
Well, he was. I bet so. I would like to never think about Riley Leonard passing overs ever again because those numbers were so low, and I kept hitting the over, and he would keep getting so close to it, and then they'd sit him the fourth quarter. So. Yeah, that was a shame.
I think we both agree though that Carr will be running far less than 125 attempts that Ben Brock's QBs have averaged over the last 2 years. I got him at 40 rushing attempts. What do you have him at?
I don't have anything yet officially, but I would imagine something like 4 to 5 a game. I can't
Mm-hmm.
imagine they're going to have many sacks, so it'll be closer to true runs or true scrambles, and that feels about right. Something like 45 to 55 total feels
Okay,
about right.
sounds good. Yeah, I technically in our conversation I bumped him up from QB 77 up to QB 49 because I realized that he's probably going to throw more than 300 times a game. or 300 times in the year, not a game. Good Lord. Let's move on before I make another fool of myself here. Let's talk about one of your guys here, Kay. And you wanted to bring up Willis, the running back out of Syracuse. I've got him ranked as RB31. You've got him ranked as RB42. ADP has him going in the late 7th round as RB37. So right in between us. And I'm sure you'll talk about it, but boy, this Syracuse offense, the whole thing feels impossible to project if we're being honest at this point. How are you going about this?
Yeah, this is one of those ones where I just don't know where to give the rushing usage to, right? Like we love LaQuinn Allen because the volume was just so insane in the pass game and in the run game. And I just, I haven't seen a lot of you've seen Willis to be like, yeah, I think he's amazing or I think he's awful, right? Like I think he's a formidable guy at the very least. He definitely is the starter, but how much do they lean on him? And then when you go into it, it's like, all right, well, like how much do they give a redshirt freshman? But then also they don't have anybody else behind him. Like it's not like they have that many options behind Willis
They do.
besides his kid, the offensive coordinator's kid,
I was about
right?
to say they do have Jeff Nixon's son.
But like Will Nixon was never any good at Washington. So
Oh no.
it's like, all right, like I mean, how much do you really give your kid? That's the hard part is I think just how much volume because Quinn Allen just lived off of the volume. It was just so incredible because of it. Then you add in the fact that they like ran like 76 plays a game. But they also threw it 60% of the time. So like maybe they throw it less and have less plays per game, and then that kind of helps those rushing attempts. This is just one of those situations where we don't know Fran Brown a lot in terms of his style. We don't know what Nixon's going to do necessarily offensively. Are they going to just keep chucking it? That would hurt Willis because I think the volume would be kind of there, but not enough. But I don't know. I mean, do you consider him a good pass catcher? Like Allen was just so great out of the backfield. Is he even half of that type of talent?
This is the thing that really kind of holds me back on Willis is that we didn't see a ton of him last year, but what we saw last year wasn't good. He averaged 3.6 yards per carry and he averaged 3.3 yards per reception. He was not very much just not a weapon out of the backfield, nearly in the same way that LaQuinn Allen was. LaQuinn Allen over the last 2 years has averaged 8.3 yards per catch. Versus, again, Willis in his limited time last year had 3.3. Now, again, limited sample size. I'm sure he's much better than that, right? If he wasn't, I have to imagine that they wouldn't be planning on him being the RB1 this year. But it's still something that worries me. And it is something that makes me want to lower the passing volume for him down considerably compared to what Allen was getting last year. I mean, Allen got like 60, 70 targets last year? Just something like absolutely insane. Like, there's no way I would be projecting that for anybody except for maybe Desmond Reed this year.
Yeah, that's one of those situations where there are guys that can get to those 50, 60 targets, but it's not a redshirt freshman. You can't in good mind do that for a redshirt freshman where we haven't seen it. What's also another interesting aspect to this is they went out and got Steve Angeli, right?
Yep.
In the spring, they did it. They announced Ricky Collins a starter, and then they went after Angeli and got him. So there is a level of like, well, they didn't go after everybody in the portal, and they know what they have, so they must like what they have.
Mm-hmm.
Because they obviously were aggressive in getting Angeli. So to me, that's why I still have him. I mean, ranked top 45. Which this feels like a really good running back group. RB 42 is a very good spot, top 10 rounds as we see here. So. That's why I still have them ranked pretty decently, but this is one of those ones where I don't think I'm going to have a whole lot of them because I feel like that 37, that 42 that I have is kind of his upside, kind of his ceiling here. So
I think 31 is kind of where I got him ranked at his ceiling right now because I just looked and I actually don't have a confidence discount rating on him right now. I got him at full 100% here. And I've got his volume at 220 rush attempts, which is what Allen has averaged over the last 2 years. But again, you listen to the coaching staff, they do talk about it as oh, we're going to replace it by committee. I still think Willis will be the lead back, but if I give him a 10% discount, again, he goes from RB31 for me down to, let's see, down to RB57. So it's a pretty big drop if I give him that, just a little bit of the discount there. But I think it's warranted a little bit at least because, again, I don't think either one of us really expect him to just plug into what Allen did last 2 years.
You definitely can't. You just can't assume that's going to happen. And Allen made his money on both side or both aspects of the offense. This is one of those
But
ones where maybe we hear something differently in the fall,
but
and
then
then we can become a little bit more aggressive on it.
maybe, but then I look around at some of the guys that are around Willis. If I rank him here at like 57, and it's like OJ Arnold, Sire Gaines, LJ Martin. Like I feel more confident about Yassine Willis and all of those guys.
Agreed. Well, who was around? Who was he around in terms of like the 30s for you? Out of
So,
curiosity.
let's see, he was at 31. So you're talking there. Kyson Brown, Jamal Haynes, Deshaun Bishop behind him, and then ahead of him, Greg DeRosier, Dalon Smothers, who we'll talk about here in a second, Freddie Brock, Ahmad Hardy, and Justice Haynes ahead of him.
Some of those names feel like really good floors, and then some of those names I feel like have really good upside. So it's hard to. I think it's more a matter of when you come down when you're drafting. It's like, all right, what kind of running back do I want? Do I want like a high upside guy like Kyson Brown? I love Kyson Brown. I've been talking about him for months. It's like I still feel very good about him, but I don't know. It's hard to take him over Yassine Willis when Willis's competition is little. The
Mm-hmm.
concern is the decrease in volume, and then the fact that they've mentioned running back by committee. But
Now, to be fair, I got Kyson Brown at a 25% confidence discount because of because of that competition, right? So like if I didn't have that, Kyson Brown would be way higher, and like you would see the ceiling play there a little bit more. I would agree with that. So yeah, I'll probably keep him at 31 for right now because again, I feel like 57 is just a little bit too low for him.
I think
But
you would just always take Willis over those guys in the 50s, so that just can't be a good. Like it just if you're gonna always take Willis over every single one of those guys around him, then it feels like okay, maybe I do need to boost him or bump him a little bit.
or at least find a way to like justify increasing his volume or decreasing his volume, and or maybe what I end up doing is like because it's like a committee, instead of doing the 10% decrease in volume or decrease in confidence, maybe I go from 220 carries down to like 200, right? Just knock off a little of that a little bit of that volume. So,
Yep.
all right, let's move on to our third guy here. I'm going back to the quarterbacks, and definitely one of our most fun players to discuss this year in our CFF Slack is Mr. Matthew Sluka, quarterback out of James Madison. I currently have him as QB 22. Chris, you have him as QB 15. ADP has him going off at the end of the 8th round as QB 17. I think everybody on the planet agrees that if Sluka starts the full year, he's got QB1 upside for CFF, right? Just the insane rushing production that he can create can absolutely put him into that top tier of quarterbacks. The problem is, though, just from an objective football standpoint, he's not a great quarterback, right? So he's not really the complete package that you would want running your offense. Now, granted, he is going back to the coaching staff that held him during his Holy Cross years, and he did phenomenally there. But if you're looking for a complete package at quarterback, Sluka's not really your guy. And James Madison does have some other options. Like Cam Coleman's not a nobody. And then the real wild card is Alonzo Barnett, right? We all kind of heard like, oh, he's may not be healthy for this year, but now it sounds like he's way ahead of schedule. So it's now a question of, are you willing to take a guy like Sluka, as high as like, is ADP's 8th round, but as your second option at quarterback when he may not even start the full year? Like, is that somebody we can risk having in our top 36 quarterbacks, let alone top 25 or top 20? How do you feel about it, Kay?
This one is like as easy as it gets. I'm super confident in Sluka. This is why it's been heated in this Canvas's Canton Slack channels because people just have created this idea that like Camden Coleman is going to beat out Sluka or that like Alonzo Barnett is like special enough to get healthy and beat out Sluka. I think the determining factor that makes me so confident is he's going back to his old coach, like his old style of offense. And he's a bad passer, 100%, but he doesn't need to pass. He doesn't need to pass. And he's also played very well against FBS opponents in this offense under this coaching staff. So I think it's going to be, I've cheated. I looked at the notes of the show sheet. It feels a little hypocritical to feel confident in some of the guys that you feel confident in later on, but then feel a little bit, scared or worried about the situation here. There's just no way that he's not starting. JMU is the favorite to win the Sun Belt.
Are they really?
JMU, yeah, they're the favorite to win the Sun Belt over South Alabama. Like, I just don't see how he's not going to get benched. So why did he go there? He went there to start. So I have him confidently in the top 20 for me.
Again, I got him at QB 22, and again, like if I look at my projections for him, right? Where are you? QB 22. There you are, buddy. So I currently have on him a 30% confidence discount because like that's the only way I could nerf him.
His
If I put him at
his rushing
zero,
upside's insane
if I put him
in
at
this offense.
zero, that puts him at 376 fantasy points, which I do believe might be the highest outside of John Mateer without me nerfing them. Like he would be my QB2 just on raw projection in total because I got him at 310 pass attempts, 150 rushing attempts. Again, I don't know if I'm not even entirely sure if I buy that 310 pass attempts, but even
I don't either, but I think you're probably low on the rushing attempts. I think if we looked at his season at the end of the year, he's probably closer to 250, 260 passing attempts and then 180 rushing attempts.
I could buy that. Like take 30 or passes away, add 30 to the rushing attempts.
He ran for 1,200 yards 2 straight seasons with the Holy Cross with 11 and 9 touchdowns. And like, I mean, it's FCS, so you can't really say it, but he was an adequate passer, at least in the offense and what he faced. The thing that I really like is the fact that when he did play at UNLV, the limited action, he still ran for 250 yards on 6.5 yards per carry. So like
Oh yeah.
that still ability to run the football was there at the level. But obviously he had all the extra stuff go on, and he just was so awful at throwing the football too.
Oh yeah, 100%. So again, I clearly still am confident in him, right? I still got him QB 22, right? And I'll still take him there in drafts if he falls to me at the right value. Might be somebody I target, kind of like how I've been treating De Rosier, the running back out of Memphis, where like if I get two running backs early on, then I'll take the shot early on with De Rosier as like the third home run or third grand slam option. Like if I got two quarterbacks early and I just feel like grabbing a third guy to like maybe put my QB room over the top, then I target Sluka early.
When my brain is, I'm brainwashed a different way these days because I'm just lazy and consider best ball just the best way to think about stuff. When you think about like drafting and stuff, are you coming from like a redraft perspective or a best ball perspective?
Mix of both.
Because I think like it makes a little bit more sense to be hesitant on Sluka compared to in redraft compared to best ball.
Oh,
I feel fine
100%.
either way. But like, I think you could get away with drafting a quarterback early, making Sluka your second quarterback in the 7th or 8th round. And we've seen so many great options be drafted in the teens in quarterbacks. This is a really good deep class. So I think like, hey, I take a risk on Sluka, go for the upside, and then I also can take Kevin Jennings or something in the 13th round, who also has a little bit of upside, but a great floor on top of it. So
Yeah, I think Elliot Mays and I were discussing that on the live stream recently, where again my strategy usually is take some safe guys early on and then shoot for upside later on. Like I'm big on drafting Brad Jackson at the end of drafts. I'm big on drafting Connor Harrell at Charlotte. I'm big on drafting guys like Haas Haney, Calandria out of UNLV. Like that's where I take my upside swings. It's like super cheap guys there at the end that could end up rushing for 1,000 yards versus like Sluka definitely has some more risk. But again, he is probably the safest among all those guys to rush for 1,200 yards if he starts all 12 games. But that's, again, the big if. But it's not a big if to you. And I understand
that's a big
that.
if for you, not for me. But I will commend you. You still have him at 22. So I get where you're coming from. But yeah, I wouldn't be concerned about the if there. But
Again,
yeah.
his upside is just astronomical. So that's why I think he's still worth taking in that range. But let's go ahead and move on to your next guy here. I touched on him earlier, but Dalon Smothers, running back out of NC State. I currently have him as RB29. You have him as RB43. ADP has him going off at the late 7th round as RB36. So again, right smack dab in the middle of us. So what's making Smothers so hard for you to rank?
I think he's talented. He's got a great nickname, Hollywood, right? So that's helpful.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm just concerned about what the actual volume is going to be like in this offense. I mean, Anai's gone, right? But the replacement at offensive coordinator, I don't believe is anything special in terms of usage. Like, it feels like we're going to consistently look at these guys for this offensive system around 150 attempts.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, how special is he to like warrant a high ranking? The reason why I still kind of like him is because he feels like he's easily the best running back.
Yep.
I feel like sometimes some of these coaches have their systems, and at a certain point they got to win, right? And they want to make a good impression. They want to keep their job. And at a certain point, I feel like if Smothers is clearly your best guy, and you have a younger quarterback that's inexperienced in CJ Bailey, then give Smothers the ball more than 150 times, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if Smothers is clearly the best guy there, then using him 12 to 14 touches a game is just criminal. So that's why I have I'm a little hesitant on him compared to you. I feel like he's the most talented guy, but I just some of these coaches can be stubborn, and I'm just a little bit worried that we're going to get the same old in terms of like a system of 150 attempts.
And that really is where it comes down to with Smothers, right? He's got the efficiency that we want to see, right? Again, over the last 2 years, he's averaged 6 yards per carry. He's caught 86% of the balls that are thrown his way, and he averages 13, almost 14 yards per catch when he does have the ball thrown his way. Now, do I think that's necessarily sustainable? Probably not. But even still, like, that's still a very, again, like you said, a very clearly high talent level there that NC State can work with that they don't really have many other options for. It all comes down to, like I said, kind of put a different way, which volume do we get? Do we get the volume that the staff has been doing the last 2 years with their top running back, which averages out about 130 carries for their top running back? Or do they go with the volume they were giving Smothers in that last period of last year, which if you extrapolate to 12 games, would have gotten him 165 carries on the year, and that's enough to get him to 1,000 yards, right? So I currently have him projected for that 165 carries, 20 targets, because they don't really pass to their running backs too much, and that projects him out to, let's see, 1,115 total yards, 11 touchdowns, and then about 16, 17 receptions.
I think he could get to 1,000 total scrimmage yards if
Yeah,
he's hitting 160 attempts. Efficiency in his yards per carry is going to go down with volume in theory.
in theory.
But there is question marks about what they really even want to do, whether it's the quarterback decision making or the coaching decision making. Like, how do you have a game of 6 for 87 and a touchdown in the passing game, and then not catch but 2 passes the next 3 weeks? Like
Mm-hmm.
where's this decision? Like, why wasn't he rotated in more? He was clearly one of the best guys at least in the backfield. And then he looked great. I think there's a guy that we'll talk about in a little bit. It's like he didn't play all that great and when he got a little bit of a shot. Well, Smothers had 13 for 83 and 2 touchdowns against rival North Carolina. Then in
Yep.
the bowl game, he went 15 for 139 and a touchdown in the passing game. It's like this, he's shown to be a very good running back. Like, when are they or will they commit to higher usage than what they've been showing us?
Yeah, I lean towards yes, right? Because again, like you said, like they got to win. Clearly, he showed himself to be a reliable option for them in the future. They got a young quarterback in Cedric Bailey that doesn't really have a lot of options to throw to. I mean, they got Noah Rogers, and then I was it Terrell Anderson kind of popped off a little bit last year.
I want to say,
Oh,
is
Justin
Wesley
Jolie
Grimes
as well.
there?
Oh, what
Wesley Grimes is there as well, I
okay?
think.
Grimes still has one more year. Funny that. I thought he was done.
Who knows? Probably, maybe, but either way, that's not something that I'd be all that excited about. He's just a name, just like Noah Rogers is.
Yeah, exactly. So again, I lean towards them doing the 165. If you're leaning towards them doing what they've done the last few years and giving him 130 carries, you're looking at a guy that's down in the RB 69 range. So it is a big range that he could end up finishing, I think. So let's move on to my third guy here, one of my running backs here. And to me, it is Davian Gaus, the North Carolina running back. I currently have him as RB24. Chris, you have him as RB37. ADP has him going off right in the middle of drafts at the beginning of the 15th round at RB60. So both you and I are pretty ahead of where the public is drafting Mr. Gaus here. And I understand people's hesitancy, right? Bill Belichick's come in. Let's be real. It's been a decent sized circus there ever since he came in, right? It's been a lot of publicity and not necessarily the good kind when it comes to that staff. And there's a lot of unknown about like what kind of system is Bill Belichick going to run at UNC? Is it going to be like a full NFL system where they're splitting carries between everybody, right? The thing that stuck out to me though is that Freddie Kitchens is now the offensive coordinator, and he was the run game coordinator for UNC for the last 2 years. So he had a huge hand in Amari and Hampton getting the workload that he got. Now, granted, clearly Hampton is a special talent. He just went off in the first round of the draft. There's a lot of things I like about Gaus. I do not expect him to be a high NFL draft pick in the future. So I do expect him to not get the volume necessarily that, Hampton was getting. But I can see him getting to, decent RB1 levels. I projected him out with Hampton's volume. And then I gave him a 33 or is it 20? Yeah, 33% discount. And that's what gets him down to RB24. Because if I didn't put that discount in of like confident or disconfidence, I guess, he'd be projected to be an RB, 5, and I wouldn't feel comfortable about that at all. So, but at the same time, right, there's just still so many questions here. But I still feel like, again, given what Freddie Kitchens did with Hampton the last 2 years, it's worth a shot decently early in drafts. What do you think, Kay?
Well, the problem all starts with like Belichick and what is he going to do, right? If you look at it from like an offensive perspective, Kitchens is there, which is helpful because he knows Gaus, and Gaus I think is the only guy that's returning from that whole running back room essentially.
Gaus was also in the portal for a brief time, and they were able to convince him to come back.
They don't have really any other options that are all that impressive. Ben Hall from Michigan, who never broke the field. I don't know if that really says anything negatively. It's not like Michigan's had good running backs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can't really knock him for that. But I don't know. But then on the other side of things, like, was he all that impressive last year? I think
not really.
The bowl game, you can't really take too much from it because that shit hit the fan when the injuries happened at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
You look at some of these other games, Boston College, he had 2 touchdowns, but 6 for 27. I just didn't see anything that really made me feel all that great about it. It's just the potential of what we could get with Kitchens. For me, my ranking of 37, it could be 37 today, it could be 57 tomorrow, it could be 87 the next day. Like it could just change. It varies, based on the wind, because I see the upside and the potential of what we could get out of this. And at the same time, too, there's a lot of projecting and a lot of question marks with what Belichick's actually going to do here.
Yeah, and it is difficult, and it does make it feel irresponsible to put him there at 24. But I got him almost as high of a disconfidence rating as I can give him, without just completely nuking him. And again, the fact that he's still kind of lingering here in the 24th, like in the 24 range, says a lot to me about the ceiling that could be here.
Who do you have at like running back 25, 26, 27?
25 is Pear, 26 is Justice Haynes, 27 is Hardy, 28 is Freddie Brock.
What a ragtag group of guys.
I know, right? Like it's so much like, what do I do with somebody? But that's the whole class this year, right? Where it's like that's our whole issue is that hardly anybody returned from last year, so there's so much speculation around the whole place.
Yeah, I was not expecting, not that I dislike these guys, but I was not expecting Payer there, and I wasn't expecting Freddie Brock there. But I get it. Or those are all guys in the same boat, like you mentioned, it's like new guys in a system that we like in theory at the very least. Like, so you're projecting, and at the end of the day, you just have to go with what you're hearing, what you're seeing in terms of depth charts and systems. And sometimes that creates oddities like a group of Lincoln paired Davion Goss and Freddie Brock.
And it's the same if you look at the guys ahead of Gaus, right? Because like Wayshawn Parker's my 23, Bryson Donaldson's my 22, Quentin Joyner's my 21. It's just a ragtag group of guys of like so much projection, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, there's certainly a tier of running backs that we feel incredible on. And then there's definitely a tier of, the problem is there's fresh faces and really impactful systems.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, we're not just getting a new running back at Georgia Tech who will produce a good running back, but not like a world beater. We're getting these ones in these elite offenses that go fast, that run a lot of plays, that score a lot. And so like you missing on this it could be super impactful to how your team performs.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to your next guy here, Kay. You got a wide receiver that you wish to discuss here, and that is Mr. Antonio Williams, wide receiver out of Clemson. This is a guy that I have been pretty low on throughout this entire year. I'll start with the ADP rank because that's actually the highest between the three of us. ADP has him at wide receiver 7, going off in the early third round. I have not touched him there because I got him ranked at wide receiver 23. Kay, you've got him at wide receiver 12. What is it about him that makes him so hard to rank for you?
I have him. He reminds me a lot of like Mekhi Hughes, where I think his ranking is more based on his floor than like what we actually think he'll perform upside wise. Like I don't see a world where he's 12th, top 12 in college fantasy football, but I don't see how he lands like outside of the top 25 or top 20 even. Like it feels like that floor is there because this offense is going to be incredible. We've seen the connection. He's a veteran. There's such limited projection here. We've seen it all. There's nothing changing, an incredible schedule to work with. You don't have to open with Georgia and get basically a 0 to start. Like there's so much going on
True.
here. The only negative to him is really like the fact that TJ Moore and Bryant Wesco are very good receivers alongside
Mm-hmm.
him. They still play him a bunch, you know. I don't think they're going to rotate in multiple guys a lot. So I think they score a lot, they throw a lot. The problem becomes like, all right, like I'm never gonna draft him in my eyes. Like he just falls into a land of where I can't take him at the 302.
Yeah.
But it's like, am I foolish for just ranking him because I feel like his floor is just so good? I don't know. We've been doing projections for unabated, and they're gonna get ready here in a little bit because we were trying to get him ready for the underdog drafts. We have Bryant Wesco over Antonio Williams. It's a combined effort. I don't know if I would necessarily fully agree,
Mm-hmm.
but we consider Wesco like a tad higher for yardage, but it's the receptions that help with Antonio Williams. So I guess they're technically receiver 8 for P4 and receiver 10 for Wesco and P4. So technically we have Williams higher, but target share we have higher for Wesco.
It is really interesting because like I was just about to bring this up as well. Like it's not just Antonio Williams that I'm lower on compared to like most people. It's the entire Clemson receiver room. Because I think people look at that offense, they think, okay, this offense is going to put up 40 points a game. Let's just grab all the pieces we can get out of this offense. And I agree with you that there's a certain floor to that that's super nice. All three of these guys, between Antonio Williams, CJ Moore, Wesco, are floor guys to me. I just think that floor is a little bit lower than people are kind of giving them credit for. Because I currently have Antonio Williams projected with 95 targets, 71, 72-ish receptions, about 820 yards and 7 touchdowns. CJ Moore at 80 targets, 52 receptions, 750 yards, 7 touchdowns. And then Bryant Wesco at 75 targets, 43 receptions, 700 yards, and 6.5 touchdowns. Like, I think they're going to be a bit more even spread out than people are giving them credit for. And one thing I kind of pointed out to you, I think we discussed Antonio Williams a couple of months ago when you first saw that I was kind of ranking him lower than everybody, was that, like, Williams had a crap load of touchdowns last year. He had more than Moore and Wesco combined, which makes sense a little bit, right? Because, they're two freshmen, right? Williams is the veteran among that group, but I think they're in for 2 big years in their second year. And, I don't think they're going to funnel touchdowns to Antonio Williams as much. And he's definitely, I don't think, going to get those 2 lucky touchdowns. He got one on the ground and then one passing, right? So you're discussing how you don't see how Antonio Williams falls outside the top 20. I got 2 touchdowns you take those away and he quickly falls out.
Yeah,
Right?
but you also took away, he had 11 touchdowns or 12 touchdowns last year in, what's that, 14 games? So a little bit less than one a game. You've already kind of hit the regression on him. So I feel like if you're going to say, well, I could take 2 touchdowns away again and then he's outside, that's like even more. What if he has 2 more touchdowns than you? Where does he rank if you give him 2 more touchdowns on top of what you already have?
If you give him too much touchdowns, or no,
Basically another fantasy point per game, like
yeah.
he had 11 touchdowns through the air. Like, there is a level of confidence when throwing the football to Antonio Williams. It's not like, I will say Antonio Williams is not like a big play threat that like it's harder to project and predict those 70-yard touchdown catches,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like these more shorter route touchdowns are a little bit easier to predict. So, maybe he does catch touchdowns at like a 9% clip or whatever. Um, so yeah,
Potentially. And also, to be clear, when I was taking away those 2 touchdowns, that was not out of my projection. It was out of what he did last year, right? Because
gotcha.
like last year, he finished as wide receiver 17, which again, I agree with you. The part of the reason why he got shot up draft boards so quickly was because he finished ahead of Jeremiah Smith in total points. And he's technically the second highest returning wide receiver from last year. That's why he jumped up so much and why he feels like he has a very safe floor. But again, if you take out those 10 points from those 2 touchdowns, the one passing touchdown and then the one rushing touchdown, he quickly drops to wide receiver 25. And then that's not even including the fact that some of those targets he got last year are going to go towards the likes of TJ Moore and Wesco. So, but like, again, I get why it's hard to rank him. I got him lower than everybody else. And a lot of those are the reason why.
Do you have any rushing projections from him? Did you give any rushing love to him? He did have 7 for 101 last year.
He did have 7 for 101, but do you really think he's going to rush for 14 yards per carry again?
I mean, there's a chance.
There's always a chance, Kay. There's always a chance.
Yeah,
there's a chance he could rip off 100 yards on 2 touches.
I think you could probably give him like 10 for 40 and call it a day. But yeah,
actually, you did just remind me of this a little bit. This was a point I wanted to bring up because I did want to bring up the rushing a little bit. He monopolized those like gadget plays last year, right? If you look at the number of wide receivers that got carries and stuff like that, either they've moved on or they've completely converted over to running back, right? Wesco and Moore didn't get a lot of gadget plays last year. I wonder if that changes this year and that actually lowers whatever ceiling there might be for Antonio Williams getting that extra work.
I think he's the type of guy that would get the rushing work. And I do wonder, what did they do? This kind of adds some complexities to it. Adam Randall, who I've been drafting everywhere, because if there's a receiver that's going to be playing running back, I'm doing that every single day of the week.
Absolutely.
Like, they're not going to run it as much as if they had Phil Maffa, right? So like, is it potential they throw more?
Could be.
And then, if you're going to have Adam Randall at running back, you're probably going to still do gadget plays. So, maybe they didn't want to lean on the freshman to have to worry about rushing plays. And I totally would get that. And, whatever. If you want to throw 40, 50 yards at rushing yards for Williams, I think that's doable and fair. But I was more just poking you to see if you had done anything with it.
No, I hadn't done anything with it. To be completely honest, let me just see.
What's 5 additional points? It's not really going to change all that much.
You would be shocked, actually. Again, these receivers project so close to each other. So let's see. Actually, let's play around with that a second.
You have like a tier of 20 receivers there, receiver 23. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So like, if you gave him 5 extra points, he'd actually jump up to wide receiver 17 for me. Like, that's how close a lot of these guys are.
It is, I will say, like, even like looking at my stuff, it is a little surprising to see where some of these guys rank. Like, we do median projections. So oftentimes, like, these guys, like, highest number in terms of like what they might throw for or rush for is not as high as what they'll be. Like, our highest running back will probably be like 1,300 rushing yards.
Oh, yeah.
Something like that. But like Antonio Williams, 65 for 750 and 7 touchdowns, puts him at receiver 8 for P4. But it doesn't feel like it would be a top 10 season just off the cuff of those numbers. But, if everybody's in the same boat, then, and the nice thing is Clemson is going to be a little bit more predictable at the very least with how quality of an offense they'll be throwing the football. So,
oh, for sure. All right, let's move on to our next guy here. I got a wide receiver I want to bring up, and that is Mr. Devin Voisin, the wide receiver out of South Alabama. I got him currently ranked as wide receiver 31. You've got him ranked at wide receiver 41. ADP has him at wide receiver 39 in the mid to late 10th round of drafts. I think there's something that we can all agree on, and that is we want to take shots on the major Applewhite wide receiver 1 again this year, right? It's been one of the most consistent positions to target for CFF. Jamal Pritchett, right? Colin Lacey, guys before that like Jalen Tolbert, right? It just they just haven't really missed outside of, I think, 1 year, and I think that might have been 2020 or 2022. I can't remember. It was a weird year. And I think that was because Voisin got hurt so early on. They had to kind of switch things up after that. But the question becomes now, who is it? Right? We got two kind of main guys to look at here for South Alabama. And that is Devin Voisin, or Anthony Eager is the other one that I've heard kind of brought up quite a bit. The things Voisin has going for him, one, veteran, obviously knows the system, more proven among the two in terms of just, again, knowing the system, being out there. He is coming off an injury, though, and we haven't really seen him be out there since that injury. He's also a 6-year player, so you kind of feel like you've basically seen his ceiling to this point. And the other thing is that he's an outside guy. Now, Major Applewhite's willing to go outside or inside, depending on where his best receiver is, right? We've seen the slot in recent years with Pritchett and Lacey, but again, Jalen Tolbert was an outside guy when he got the monster volume. So I'm not as married to that when it comes to Major Applewhite's wide receiver one, but it is something to point out that, again, lately it's been the slot. Voisin's an outside guy. Meanwhile, Eager is a younger guy, a slot guy, definitely less proven of the two, has had a super solid spring by all accounts, got a ton of praise during this offseason, and he himself said, I think I can do what Jamal Pritchett did last year. Now, again, that's his words, that's not from the coach or anything like that, right? But I do think it is interesting, and it definitely throws a wrench into where I actually put Devin Voisin here, because if I put both of these guys in my rankings with the same number of targets, and they project out to, with 100 targets each, 75 receptions for Voisin, 70 receptions for Eager, 990 yards for Voisin, 932 for Eager, and then both of them around 8-9 touchdowns. I gave them both a 20% discount on the confidence rating. With raw projections, they would both be wide receiver, or they'd both be top 25 wide receivers. Voisin would be top 12 wide receivers. But the problem is, I can't rank them there because I don't know which one to go with. How are you kind of breaking down this room? Okay.
This one's interesting because Pritchett was tiny and everybody was like, wow, he's playing out wide. Like, will they throw it? Will he be out wide and will he be the guy? Well, they moved him inside and then he got all the volume. It has shifted back and forth. Like, don't forget, Voisin was very good years ago. He was one of those guys, 3 guys that had 800 plus receiving yards for them. And he did that out wide.
Yes.
So there's 2 pieces to it. Look, well, years ago, Voisin was very good out wide in this offense where there were 3 guys eating. And also, Pritchett moved from outside to inside. Is it possible that they'd be open to moving Voisin from outside to inside?
Based on what I've heard out of the spring, it does seem like Voisin's staying outside and Eager will be that slot.
It is. The conundrum here is, man, this offense like just churns them out. How much have you taken into consideration the fact that Bishop Davenport can't throw the football?
I trust Major Applewhite to get his to help out his quarterbacks, and because again, like, I didn't think that Jake Bentley was a super great quarterback. I didn't think that what's the guy that came after him? Oh my God, not Ritter. Trotter, Desmond Trotter wasn't a great quarterback either, and they were still pumping out guys even with them. And here's the thing: if Davenport can't throw the football, that helps out Eager. Because again, he'll be playing in that slot. He'll have that lower A dot. He doesn't.
You'd imagine the shorter routes. Yeah.
The shorter routes are going to help him out, right? Versus Voisin playing on the outside, maybe. But again, like, I trust Applewhite to just get his best receiver open. It's just, who's his best receiver? The veteran in Voisin or the young upside guy in Eager? I have no clue, and that's why I have a tough time ranking these guys.
I would feel receiver has the highest bust rate, like just the highest missed rate. But like, I would feel good about Voisin. There is a difference between Davenport and those guys you mentioned. Like, Davenport's definitely a runner, and bad quarterbacks can be great for receiver ones. We've talked about in the past. Like, they just look at one guy and they just throw it to him nonstop because they're just not a talented quarterback. There is a little bit of a shift. You can't really be a bad quarterback and just be run first. Davenport's numbers are fine. He's not like Dexter Williams, who I ripped on years ago, and he called me out, or tried to. Davenport did start for South Alabama.
He did. He
a
looked good.
year or 2 ago. Who led the team in receiving yards that game? Devin Voisin.
Oh, really? Okay.
5 for 77. Pritchett had 8 for 68, so he maintained the higher target rate. But yeah, I don't know. Eager's interesting because of the role, but he's done nothing, like literally nothing in his
Mhm.
career. So it's hard to say he's going to beat out the veteran in Boyson. Where would you consider Eager in supplemental drafts?
I mean, I just took him. If you're
Oh,
watching,
did you? I thought
I
he was
lit,
available, and I
I
was trying to
literally
get a pulse on where you were at.
nope. I literally. Oh, dang it, Ethan! You broke my heart too. Ethan just took my. I had two guys that were top of my queue. I took Eager because I needed wide receiver help, but I was like, oh, maybe I can get Voorhees in the second round. Nope. Ethan said nope. But yeah, I literally just took Eager in the fifth round of Nate's 2014 Dynasty. So I guess it's like what 10th round of a supplemental. But like, yeah, he's a. I can't remember if he's a true or redshirt sophomore, but he's got plenty of years of eligibility left. And I actually discussed Eager on defending the Natty yesterday during our like stash picks, where I was like, worst case scenario for CFF Dynasty, I think Eager is, secondary guy this year, top guy next year.
It does feel like Eager is just a year away.
Exactly. Or best case scenario, again, Voisin just isn't back from injury and Eager just becomes the guy this year.
Yeah. What you don't want is Eager to have a good year, but not like great year, because then you risk the fact that he's going to transfer out. Like I feel like if he stays another year, he's like slotted in very well.
Mm-hmm.
But what you don't want is him to go 35 for 700 and then think he can go Mississippi State or something. That's what you're trying to avoid here.
No, I definitely agree. All right, let's keep it moving here. Let's move on to your next guy here, Kay. This one I'm going to keep relatively short, but I'm curious to see where you're kind of falling with him because you're more in line with ADP. ADP's got him at wide receiver. Or actually, I should say the name of the player, shouldn't I? Nick Anderson, the wide receiver out of LSU here. He is currently going off draft boards about the late 13th round, wide receiver 46 in ADP. Kay, you've got him at wide receiver 49. I've got him at wide receiver 118, and I'm borderline thinking about just taking him out of my rankings altogether.
It is so tough because he had that great year for Oklahoma,
Yes.
and then he's just been hurt ever since. And he is a good receiver. He's a great college receiver. Who knows what he could do? I think he's a year 1-0 and all that type of jazz, right?
Yeah.
But like from a college perspective, he's a very good receiver. This offense could easily throw for 4,000 yards. There's not an alpha there. Aaron Anderson's a very good receiver as well. He's going to play really well in the slot and be a very good asset in PPR leagues. But like, who is the outside guy that's going to be very good, right? Who's going to replace Kyron Lacey? You would think if he was healthy, it would be Nick Anderson. Like if you said Nick Anderson is healthy, there's health across the board in the LSU receiver room. Who would you want the most?
I probably would say Nick Anderson.
But he's always hurt, and
He's
like
always hurt.
he's dinged up, and I am just a little. I'm gonna drop him, I think, after this, but it hurts because I just know that if he was to be healthy, he's gonna be an incredible option
I think
because you're gonna want a piece of this passing attack.
I think he would be. I think he'd be the best option. My thing is that I look at that receiver room, and they got plenty of guys. They there's no need to rush Nick Anderson back, right? Like at least for this year. You got Aaron Anderson in the slot. Barry and Brown will be there in the slot as well. Chris Hilton, Xavier Thomas on the outside, Kyle Parker. They got guys. They got guys that they can kind of work with there. I don't think there's any real reason to. I don't think there's any real reason to rush him back unless one of those other guys gets hurt or something like that. But even so, like I doubt that he starts the year.
He is undrafted in the 25th round of this Champion Series draft that I'm in right now. That's like how far he's fallen. I think as you get more ADP data,
Oh yeah,
you're going to see that thing plummet. But I think at this late in the game, right? If you're telling me he's receiver 100 for ADP, I think you almost have to consider it a little bit just because, right?
he is a perfect fit for that system, right? And that's why I still even have him in my rankings. But like when you look at the guys I have him around, like it doesn't feel good. Like where is Nick Anderson? Where did I put him? I said wide receiver 118, but I think I actually messed around with my rankings earlier, so he might be a little bit further down, further up. Where'd he go?
You just nuked him into oblivion.
There he is. Wide receiver 124 now, actually. So he's going ahead of Alex Perry at Florida International, Katie Hutchinson at Western Kentucky, Trek Kahuna at Wisconsin, And he's going behind Xavier Townsend, Dylan Williams, Dalen Cobb, and Christian Fitzpatrick at Oklahoma State.
Why rank him? Why rank him if you're gonna like?
I wanted to see kind of where he was at, like where he like just raw projection wise.
Yeah, to me, he is.
Like I said, I'm curious to see like what would he be if he was like fully healthy, right? And if he was fully healthy, and there was no, and like I didn't have any like worry about him whatsoever, he'd be wide receiver 36 for me.
What you should do or consider is tell yourself, decide a number of how many games he misses. Does he miss the first month? Do you think an injury nags him for 4 games out of 12? Then dock that based on that, and then rank accordingly. This is kind of one of those interesting situations where, like in fantasy baseball, you pick up a guy like Acuna was a great example. He missed like all of April and came back sometime in May. Like, so you just dock that percentage of the season and then you rank accordingly. Like, because if he's healthy starting October 1 and he's good to go, I mean,
here's
that's
the thing.
Gonna be an
I
incredible
think
weekly option.
I think that's going to nuke him even further because I had him at a 30% discount. And I'm thinking that I'm looking up to see what the first bye week for LSU is. So yeah, first bye week for LSU is week 6. So I'm thinking he misses at least that first portion, right?
What even is his injury right now? It was at Oklahoma's shoulder.
Whatever it was clearly enough to knock him out for the full spring. Yeah, if I put him at 7 games, right, like that completely nukes him. He'd drop even further than where I have him right now.
Yeah, let's see here. It looks like a quadriceps injury, and then he re-aggravated it.
Glorious. Those are always fun.
Yeah. Those lower body ones just can get re-aggravated so quickly. I don't know. The fear, it's FOMO is what it is. That's like the real big reason why he's listed here today is the FOMO. Because if you just don't, somebody's going to nab him in like the 24th round every single time and get an absolute cheat code if things fall the right way.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to my last guy here, and that is Mr. Matthew Henry, wide receiver out of Western Kentucky. This is, I'm sure, when you saw my ranking of this guy, okay, I'm sure you were wondering what I was smoking, because I currently got him rated as wide receiver 28. You got him at wide receiver 68. ADP is way behind both of us at wide receiver 111, back 3 rounds of a 30-round draft. Again, I've got him at wide receiver 28, which feels insane, but here's the thing, Kate, that's with a 28%, or that's with a 20% discount on his raw projection, right? Like I've included some worry that I have about, him transferring from the FCS to the CUSA. I've included a little bit of discount for the fact that, again, I'm not entirely sure that he is the wide receiver 1. Here, right? I'm pretty confident in that, but I'm putting a little bit of discount on him just because of that. But here's the thing. There is a bit of wide range as to what could happen here. Rick Bowie doesn't have a ton of experience as an offensive coordinator, so I can't really tell exactly what his system is, right? Last year, Blaine Taylor was his wide receiver 1. He was an outside wide receiver, and he saw 110 targets over 12 games. Right, but the year before that, his top outside wide receiver, which I don't know if you cheated on the show sheet here, but do you know who his top outside wide receiver was at Valdosta State in 2023 is?
I couldn't have told you now.
Ted Hurst.
Ted Hurst went from
Valdosta State to Georgia State.
Georgia State?
That blew me away when I first saw it. But here's the thing: like he didn't use Ted Hurst very much. Ted Hurst was their top outside wide receiver that year, but he had 57 targets. Or I extrapolated that 57 targets. What I did was I saw that he had 38 receptions. I took the receiving percentage that Blaine Taylor got, and I just estimated that he had about 55, 60 targets based on the number of receptions that he got. But so that averages out to about 85 targets. But here's the other thing. There's also the possibility that it could just be his top wide receiver, whether it's outside or slot, similar to Major Applewhite. They're just getting a boatload of targets, right? Blaine Taylor was his top wide receiver, like I said, in 2024, outside guy, 110 targets. The year before, BK Smith was his top wide out there with 88 targets out of the slot. That averages out to 99 targets. So I gave under the assumption that Henry would be getting those 100 targets, right? I gave him the 100 targets, and that gave him a projection of, let's see, 100 and where is it at? There it is. Yeah, 189.8 fantasy points. That comes out to 61 receptions, 1,022 yards, and about 9-10 touchdowns. Right. I gave him the discount from there. Still has him here at wide receiver 29. Again, the ceiling's pretty high here. But, like, who's his competition? Right? Musa Berry, CUSA all-freshman participant Cameron Flowers, KD Hutchinson, Cody Epps out of the slot. Like, this dude was a beast at the FCS level. Let me see. I think he was averaging, 18 yards per catch.
Yeah, he was almost like a 20 yards per catch guy. It was
And
it was like 51 for 1,000 or something like that.
Like 2.46 yards per route run. Like, dude was absolutely insane. He was absolutely playing below his competition level. And let's be honest, going from the from the FCS to CUSA is not a huge jump. So, I think Henry's got a huge upside compared to where he's going in drafts right now. But, it feels wrong to have him this high.
The confidence you have for a position that is the position we get the wrong the most is baffling to me. You have question marks about Sluka and if he's going to make it throughout the year, but you feel this good about Matthew Henry being the receiver one, the offense being good, him having almost 20 yards a catch. There's a lot of leaping here. There's a lot of projecting here. I can get it, but that efficiency is very high for a guy that, played the FCS ranks, and I think he played D2 before that. I think he has bumped up twice now.
Now, granted, his efficiency in my projection comes down a little bit because, again, the outside wide receiver for Rick Bowie is average only about 15 yards per catch. So, not the full 18 yards I'm projecting here.
Where does he rank when you consider the fact that he only plays 11 games?
I have that.
You have him at receiver 28 with 11 games.
I'm telling you, dude, the projection on this is insane. If I took away the fact that if I took away the confidence rating completely, right? He'd be at 173 fantasy points, which would jump him up to wide receiver 10.
Yeah, this is leaps. We talk about this in Balling with my bestie all the time. Receivers, when we're trying to project them and the quarterback and all these things going on, it just becomes very quick to get hurt.
Here's my thing, right? If I put him at the 85 targets instead of the 100 targets, right? Because 85 is the average of what the outside wide receiver has gotten the last couple of years, right? That does bump him down. That brings him down to wide receiver 60. Oh, good Lord. Oh, Jesus. 67. But again, that feels like a massive drop down from again. Now, granted, that's just wide receivers in general. Like I said before, there's not a huge gap in terms of total fantasy points between all these projections, right? At least once I put in the confidence rating with all of them. But even that suddenly feels too low for me.
Yeah. The nice thing is that you don't have to draft him at where you rank him. So
No.
you're going to be fine if he does fail, which he likely will, just based on law of averages and math. You're not getting hurt with a 10th round pick or 6th round pick. You're getting hurt with a 20th round pick. I'm going to be interested to see what all the different, guides out there put as the receiver one for Kentucky, Western Kentucky. It is kind of cool that Western Kentucky has yet again done the whole bring the OC, bring the quarterback situation. And was it again Houston Baptist? Did I read that correctly?
No, it was
Abilene Christian. That's what it was. Did they bring a receiver from Abilene Christian?
They did not.
They should have,
unfortunately. I'm telling you, when I was looking at this, I'm like, I got to make sure I cover all my bases here because, right now, to me, it looks like Matt Henry's the clear wide receiver one here because there's just nobody else in this room that feels like you should be confident in.
Yeah. It's the situation is nice. The system is nice. I think the quarterback play will be good enough. But yeah, good luck. I'm not going to be playing, and all my focus and attention is on P4 stuff. So not a decision I have to make for the most part.
All right. Yep, I will. Yep, you'll let me take the risk on this one.
I will for sure.
Let's talk about your last guy here, Kay. You want to talk about Keelan Marion, wide receiver, formerly of BYU, now at Miami. I have him ranked as wide receiver 81. You have him ranked as wide receiver 69. ADP, nobody wants to touch this man. And let's be honest, Kay, how long ago did you rank him into your rankings? Because I did it this morning.
Within the last 2 weeks, within the last week or so, I've taken him a couple times. My current draft strategy in best balls right now, P4 and G5, like full FBS, is truly hammer running backs early. Like one of the drafts, 8 of my first 16 picks were running backs because in my eyes, that's the easiest to project. It's the easiest confidence wise. So I'm trying to you can start up to 5 or 6 depending on those best ball leagues. Let me just hammer out as many predictable running backs as I can that give me a good floor, and then I'll figure out the rest with receivers. There's a lot of great receivers that you can find late, and I tend to think Keelan Marion can be one of them, or just whoever is the guy at Miami. So we listed Keelan Marion, but really it's like, is it CJ Daniels? Is the guy going to be Ray Joseph? Or I think, isn't JoJo Trader there?
Yep.
Like, there's just a lot of names, and I'm going to be very in tune to see what's up. Also, it would be nice to get confirmation that Carson Beck is feeling good, looking good, throwing good, all that type of stuff. So I think a guy like Keelan Marion's a great value at this point. But there's a lot of question marks here because, if he is the receiver one from Miami and Carson Beck, I think you could reasonably shoot him up the board another 15 to 30 slots, just depending on how aggressive you want to get.
Yeah, I would agree. It like on paper, there's so much about this wide receiver room that just screams mid. But here's the thing, like as we kind of found out last year, they don't need super talented wide receivers to do heavy damage, right? Xavier Restrepo went undrafted. Now, granted, he ran like a 4.93 time, 40 time and stuff like that, just absolutely killed his draft stock. But even still, like he wasn't like the highest athletic, or God, I can't speak. He wasn't the most athletic guy. He wasn't like a guy that like NFL scouts were like drooling over and everything. They still got him 1,000 yards 2 years in a row, right? So don't necessarily need talent, but again, like you look at the 3 options they really have to play out of that slot, and I do think there are 3 options with Keelan Marion, Ray Joseph, and Tony Johnson, right? Because Tony Johnson kind of played a balanced role at Cincinnati, so I think if they wanted to, they can move him into the slot pretty easily. But overall, there's just not a ton to love here. Like Keelan Marion, 1.3 yards per route run, only about 5 yards after the catch. Same with Tony Johnson, right? Only about 5 yards after catch. So they don't really create a lot of space. Keelan Marion played a little bit more outside at BYU. Now, granted, again, he can move to the slot. He's actually gotten more and more slot reps at BYU during his career as he's kind of gone on. So, like, clearly that's the direction he was heading. But then you got Ray Joseph, where he's got the best yards per route run out of these 3, not by much, about 1.5 compared to 1.25 and 1.3. He creates the most space, yards after catch per reception at 9. Problem is he's only caught like 14, 15 balls during his time at Miami so far. So it's a very small sample size. And in that small sample size, he's only averaged about 9 yards per catch. So it's like none of these guys are like super impressive. But again, this is the spot we typically want to target, at least from what we can tell. So again, I say for right now, kind of similar to Matthew Henry, right? If you believe in the upside of one of these guys, they're free 99 right now. Take your shot. I'm going to continue to rank them as such for right now because I have zero confidence on who's going to even start for Miami, let alone who's going to actually be in the slot right now. That's why I got them both. I got Marion, and I think I ranked Ray Joseph as well. Where did I have him end up? There he is, wide receiver 111. So like I got them both pretty nuked right now. And then once I get some more confidence, I'll probably move them up.
Yeah, there's so much opportunity here, right? Because Restrepo's gone, Horton's gone, Jacoby George, Samuel Brown,
Yep.
Elijah Arroyo. You're looking at like the top 5 target guys there. Tony Johnson's a good addition. I actually have him in Nate League, the Dynasty League, which I feel fortunate for. But he was like a 6 yards per target guy. There's just a lot of unimpressive names in this group, but we've always said, like, you don't have to be good to produce good stats.
Yep.
So that's why I'm kind of thinking, okay, which one of these guys could be it? But definitely you have to keep your ear to the wall here, because the moment you can get a good glimpse of who that guy's going to be, you can get a couple drafts in with some really good value.
Absolutely. All right, Kay. Appreciate it, man. Again, we discussed a lot of good names today, a lot of players I don't think we've really gotten a ton of discussion on so far this offseason, so I think people will definitely enjoy that. What kind of stuff are you working on, man? I know that obviously I've sang your praises for how much you've done for the CFF guide, but I know you're doing a lot of great stuff for the Underdog Best Balls that'll be coming out here soon. You did an awesome article talking about the Tadpole Bowl scoring and how that kind of changes certain guys' value. What other stuff you got working on?
Really just focusing on like the whole Underdog Best Ball and the Tadpole Bowl stuff, so content around that, and then podcasts of Balling with My Bestie with Ethan. Once these drafts go live, we're gonna go weekly. So we've been bi-weekly, just doing more strategic type content. And I think you were a little part of it a little bit last year. I think, like, just the excitement of these underdog drafts and then doing them live with shows during the day and stuff. Like, it's just a really good content experience for everybody, the creator and the watcher.
Oh yeah.
So that's really the focus. Mike Bainbridge, makes fun of me for copping out and focusing on P4 these days. But one, quality of life is so much nicer now.
I believe it.
And two, that's where like the big clout and the big money is now. Like, if you win the Tadpole Bowl, that's incredible. If you win the Underdog Best Ball stuff, that's a lot of money plus great clout. Like, that's where the money's at. So, not saying that you should stop playing full FBS. All my Fantrax stuff is full FBS, and I love it. But there is a little bit of a niceness to the fact that the Tadpole Bowl and Underdog is P4 only.
So that's why you had such a pained look in your face when I was asking you to talk about South Alabama and Western Kentucky wide receivers. I get it now.
I'm a little bit more shooting from the hip on some of these G5 ones. Some of these names, like Matthew Henry, I hadn't heard of until yesterday or the day before. So, but I'm trying to educate myself when I do hear the names.
No, it's fun. You're probably in that Nate draft right now, and you're wondering, like, who are half these guys that are coming off the board right now? No, to be fair, there's some I'm looking at, and I'm like, who's this? Brandon Winton. That's a name I had not heard this offseason. So that's a new one. I have
taken, in my credit, my first 3 picks were G5 guys. So
I
Estimaker, Miles Coleman, and Kewan Singleton.
Did you was single? No, or oh wait, no. Nope,
the South Florida receiver.
You forgot another G5 guy you took. Took Telly Johnson.
Oh yeah, Telly Johnson, of course.
Of course.
How could I forget Telly?
How could you forget Telly?
Telly's interesting. I think people are rightfully so cooling on him, but there's a certain point where we've gone too far. There's enough upside that you just got to pull the trigger. And that's where I got with Telly.
I have him as RB71.
Yeah, well, if you think Shamon Wright's going to ruin the game, then yeah.
Shavon Wright and Jalen Poe. Jalen Poe's a force in that backfield too.
Don't do Jalen Poe. If you want to do Wright, I'm in, but don't be doing Poe.
Poe's going to be involved. I'm just saying. Poe will be involved.
Poe did get some love. I will say Poe did get some love in the spring. That Northern Illinois beat guy. Props to that guy. That guy asked all the good questions. If you haven't, I don't remember his name, but if you're not following him, you need to find him, because he does a lot of good work, like actually getting good observations and stuff like that from practices and quotes and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know. It might be the same guy that G5 Hive just had on there, as they just released their NIU episode, which, by the way, had the running backfield as a committee. So I don't know if it's the same guy or not, but
I know for a fact G5 Hive is incredible, but they don't have 100% hit rate. So
nobody has 100%.
That'll be their one miss this year. Will be the running back by committee for NIU.
There you go. So, Okay, you're awesome, man. I'm glad I could have you back on the show. For each and everybody person out there, again, make sure you go and sign up. Make sure you go buy this year's CFF guide. You get 25% off of it on pre-order. Make sure you go sign up for the Tadball. It is a ton of fun. Make sure you check out the rest of the Campus to Canton podcast family. We got a ton of shows ranging on all sorts of things related to the college fantasy game. We'll see you guys back here next Monday when we'll have a brand new topic for you guys. Make sure you check out the live drafts that I have started up again this year. We just did one with Elliot Mays this past week. You can check out the replay of that. It is 2.5 hours of just pure CFF discussion, hanging back and drafting. It's a ton of fun. We'll have another one on June 14th. I'll have Josh Chevalier joining me for that one, so that'll be a big blast for you guys. Until then, really appreciate all of you guys out there, and I hope you guys have a wonderful and blessed week. See y'all.